Okay, here we are on our last lecture. Let's get started with our trending topics in health, fitness, and sport. And so this will go over just various different topics regarding health, fitness, and sport, but mainly looking at the research that kind of dives deep into it and explores these areas. So just jumping straight into it, exercise and chronic disease management. And so what research is doing is looking at how different types of exercise, different types of aerobic exercise and anaerobic exercise will help to manage diseases, diabetes, cardiovascular, and obesity. And so with diabetes, we know that exercise helps to manage the response of insulin. It increases insulin sensitivity and decreases insulin resistance, which helps diabetics manage their blood sugar better. Um, we also know that individual or physicians, doctors are trying to move away from prescription drugs. There's an initiative called Exercise is Medicine, and it's taking exercise as a route to cure non-communicable diseases instead of using a drug. And so investigating mechanisms in exercise prescription instead of drug prescription for certain populations that would benefit from this type of intervention. And so I think it's a really amazing type of intervention because we also know that exercise can help with cardiovascular disease, starting with like blood pressure, because it can help to um, vasodilate. And with vasodilation, we know blood can flow more freely and it can, Finn, come here, Finn, no, don't break him. And blood can flow more freely, and so moving through the heart and through the body. This can help with peripheral artery disease, coronary artery disease with that extra vasodilation that exercise gives us. We know it also helps to lower heart rate at rest when we exercise. And then obesity, we know managing excess weight. And so there's so much more research that I could discuss in regards to exercise to help with these conditions. But this is a really awesome topic. Next one is slightly outside of my knowledge area, but is a really cool concept. Looks at the gut microbiome and exercise. And so, what these studies are looking at is the link between exercise and gut health. Exploring how physical activity influences bacteria. So, you know that we have bad bacteria in our body, which hopefully we don't have a lot of, and then we have good bacteria. The good bacteria is what we want because it helps to kind of clean out and eat all the bad bacteria and can contribute to overall positive health. And so, what these studies have found is that longer duration, so going on a really long aerobic exercise, bike ride, or run, or doing something of really high intensity, allows more oxygen to reach the brain. And then that oxygen gets into the bloodstream, and that oxygen can help to increase the healthy bacteria, gut bacteria, which creates a more healthy, positive gut microbiome. Again, slightly outside of my area of knowledge and can't elaborate much more, but I find it very fascinating. Next is looking at personalized nutrition. With personalized nutrition, we are looking at creating diets for every single individual, and it's personalized or customized to that one person's DNA. And so advancements in genetic testing and AI are making this possible. Um, it's associated with our genetic phenotypic, so genotypic, phenotypic, medical history, nutritional goals, and other important information that can guide what we should be eating. And so there's this really interesting thing or statistic that I looked up is that humans' DNA, if you look at one human to the next human, our DNA is 99.9% the same. And there's like 0.1% that is different between humans. But they say that that is enough of a difference to have customized nutrition based on our genetic material. I find that also very fascinating, which again is slightly out, this is outside of my knowledge. I don't study like DNA sequences or genetic testing, but it's a really cool topic, especially if we continue to see these advances in genetic testing and AI that allow this to be more mainstream to where we can get this done easily. Next is psychological resilience in athletes, which is a really great topic to discuss. And so, what it talks about is we know that mental health is a very prevalent topic in sports and among athletes. Research has started to examine strategies to build psychological resilience to help with competition stress, injuries, and setbacks. If you've ever had an injury, if you've ever had a setback in a sport, you know how mentally traumatizing it can be for some people. They have trouble handling that. And there's research looking in how can we create strategies to build our resilience. And so I want you to think about what are some ways athletes can actually practice psychological resilience and bounce back from things, bounce back from setbacks and bounce back from injury, mainly on the mental side of things to help cope with it because it's very hard, or it can be. Finn, come here. Finn, come here. Finn, come here. Advanced biomechanics. We talked about this in our biomechanics lecture, but the advancements are pretty amazing because it's really helping to improve performance. Sophisticated technology to analyze movement patterns in detail, which helps with injury prevention, performance optimization. We talked about how there's no like perfect movement technique, but there's a goal in which we're trying to achieve. And it may be a certain movement pattern that we're trying to aim for. Even though it's not perfect, we want to aim for that movement pattern to reduce our injury risk or to improve our performance. And so what they're doing a lot is integrating wearable technology. So the exercising, performing your sports skill with these reflective devices on it or some sort of technology to monitor your movement. And we get that feedback sent to a computer. We can analyze it and figure out certain angles, certain speeds, velocities, real-time feedback that allows for improvements in training or rehabilitation, which is really cool. Next is motor control and motor learning. And so this here just talks about how we want to create a very rich sensory environment and create challenging experiences to allow us to solve problems that can improve our motor processing. We want to talk about kind of with this topic how we want to progress from novice to skilled motor performance throughout our entire lifespan. We want to become more skilled the more we age. Just think about like a baby to an adolescent to a fully grown adult, a fully functioning, and think about how our skills have progressed. In order to do that, we need to be exposed to different environments and we need to be able to do certain skills perfectly in those different environments. And this dives deep into how that's actually possible. This one's also pretty outside of my knowledge realm. I don't do much motor control or learning, but I find it interesting, especially with me having young children and watching them learn a certain skill, learn a certain motor pattern, and how those progress throughout a lifetime. And how can I make them easier for my children to perform? And like it says up here, is creating challenging experiences, but with a rich sensory environment. Next is genetic testing for athletic talent, which is really cool. There's this actin-3 sports gene that is expressed in fast twitch muscle fibers, which are your type 2 fibers, which are used in sprinting, weightlifting, and doing anything like really intense and quick, like a vertical jump or a golf swing or tackling somebody. So anything really fast. It plays a crucial role in how our muscles function and athletic performance, especially when it's anaerobic and high intensity. What research has shown is those athletes who do have high status, they're very elite, they have high sprint ability, they're very fast, and they usually have this gene compared to the general population. This YouTube video here at the bottom talks about detecting this gene. You can do like a blood test, like a DNA blood test, and it can scan for this gene. And if you have this gene, you are more likely to possess high muscle strength and high sprint ability. And so some young athletes are getting this test done to figure out which sport they are suited for most, which again, I find really cool. Next is medicine and pharmacology. So we talked about this a little bit in the issues in sport lecture, but kind of three topics that we'll discuss here, or three little snippets, I guess. New synthetic drugs. There are drugs being created that are not what we can't detect in a drug test. And so they're able to evade detection because they're so new and they can mimic the sequence of another drug. So they can mimic these other drugs. And so this new drug is not detected, but it does the same thing as this illegal banned substance. And so that can cause problems with drug testing in sports. Legal battles, athletes armed with sophisticated legal assistance are challenging the results of failing a drug test. And so now it goes into these lengthy, expensive legal battles when athletes are stripped of medals or they're banned from competing. And they hire these sophisticated legal teams to challenge those results. And again, that can just cause issues. Last is ethical questions, where we have blurred lines between substance that are banned and just a regular supplement. So, like a regular supplement and a banned substance, those lines are blurring. And so, it's really hard now to determine what is an unfair advantage. Again, with these new drugs being created and they're mimicking each other and they're so close, like this one's banned and this one's not, but they're almost identical. It's really hard for pharmaceuticals and drug companies and testing agencies to figure out like what do we do in these situations. So again, it's getting more difficult to be in this kind of drug testing field. Technological advances in regards to clothing. So these clothing companies are incorporating technologies in the material to help athletes recover better and probably perform better. These fabrics monitor heart rate, temperature, and muscle activity. So we call these smart textiles, which you see here, where they're embedded with different sensors and they can sense maybe hormones in your blood or different chemicals in your blood. They might be able to sense like heat produced, like it says, heart rate, other different activities produced from your muscle, and then infrared clothing, which helps with recovery. And so we know red light has a lot of benefits when it comes to skin tissue, when it comes to muscle tissue. And so clothing that has red light into it that helps with recovery. You can do, if you're interested in red light therapy, it's pretty fascinating. You can just kind of Google that, and that will take you on another adventure into what all red light does for you. AI, we know a lot about AI, but what AI is now coming out with is personalized training plans that analyze our movements in real life. And so AI is able to analyze your performance and then analyze what your goals are, and then it creates an entire training plan for you. These insights are helping to transform athletic competitions, improve the way athletes train, perform, recover. Another question it talks about is in this article about AI is how do you think AI can help in fantasy sports? There are some AI programs that basically draft your entire like fantasy football team for you, and it will draft everybody and basically tell you exactly who to pick after scanning like all the stats from the athletes and all the stats from the teams. And so that's kind of interesting for upcoming fantasy sports. But yeah, AI is out there, it's everywhere, and it can now create personalized training programs based on your own performance. Virtual reality has also been shown to help with an athlete training and an athlete coaching. So VR could be anything from watching a screen to wearing goggles that have the virtual reality in them. Allows you to practice, learn, play at your own pace, and helps you with proper technique and can also monitor and help you correct your errors, which would not affect you if you're just practicing and you're not in like a real time, but it simulates real time. It simulates a game. Coaches can simulate unpredictable nature of live competition. And so you can pretend that this live competition is happening, even though it's not, and it allows your athletes to prepare better provide valuable feedback, guide instruction. And so athletes, coaches are using these VR goggles technology to like during practice sessions and for just overall improvement of athleticism and working as a team. It's really fascinating. And finishing up is fan engagement. And so both VR and AR is augmented reality, allows you to feel like you're a part of the match and immersed in a game by adding this virtual content. And so, like having this screen, if you're at a match and you have this screen come up in front of you and it tells you where the bathroom is and it tells you the stats of every single player on the team. It also has these AI-driven platforms analyzing the behavior of fans and their preferences, and that helps to create personalized content and recommendations like for every single fan. And so it's getting really crazy. This goes again way above what I'm actually, taught in. But all of this new technology is just really allowing people to experience things more than they actually would in a normal setting that we had, years ago. So it's just expanding our ability to experience things in life. So virtually, this augmented reality, just making things appear more exciting, pleasant, giving us more information, all those things. Last is a TED Talk that I want you to watch, but I only want you to watch like the first, I think it's 8 minutes. Are athletes really getting faster, better, stronger? So here's the YouTube clip right here by David Epstein, who's a very popular TED Talker and also writes several novels. I want you to kind of explore this question. Are athletes really getting faster? Are they really getting better? Are they really getting stronger? Or is there something else that is making it look like athletes are getting faster, better, stronger? So, what has changed over the centuries of sport competition that is allowing these athletes to appear faster, better, stronger? Okay, just the first part of this video. Yeah, that's it for all of our lectures. I hope you'd enjoyed them. And we'll check back soon with more content emails, check on Canvas, and we'll finish up the semester. Okay, bye.